So with Japan, we're going to see a lot. This is all pretty much the same from country to country. Same sort of posters demonizing the other. You've seen the different techniques of propaganda. They're all in play here. Going, through children to get to the parents through educational pamphlets that would be handed out in schools. Um, Now, one thing that we do see is, the incorporation of the rising sun image, which is the symbol of Japan. It's on their flag. And we see a lot of more Japanese styled artworks, kind of like the ukiyo-e prints that we saw earlier on. Now, here we see a really interesting one because it isn't uh, uniquely Japanese, but it has more of a feel of like a British or an American poster in terms of the way that it's portrayed with this realism. And that is kind of the outlier for a lot of Japanese propaganda. But here it is, you still see elements of the Japanese culture and heritage with the samurai and it kind of representing the mighty Japanese navy striking down any opponents. Here we see something more about the might of the Japanese Navy and Air Force. Now, this is an interesting one because it not only shows soldiers, but it shows everybody. And we've seen this theme before. You know, you have miners, you have factory workers, farmers. Everybody is doing their part to pitch in to help win the war. And you see, this is done very much in the ukiyo-e style that we looked at earlier. It's even got Mount Fuji in the background, the kind of sacred mountain. Now, this one's interesting because this isn't one that was put out to the Japanese people, but this is something that was dropped from planes and scattered the Philippines. Okay, this is something that would have been, spread out before the Bataan Death March and things like that. That you're really trying to get the enemy to doubt their cause, as opposed to getting your people to support your cause. And we'll just take a little look at Britain. It's much like the United States. Um, you know, work in the factories, women. Uh, don't forget the bombing of Lidus. Keep that tragedy in mind and get revenge. Rally the troops. We beat them before. We'll beat them again. Much like the FDR poster, with an inspirational quote and the powerful military behind him. Churchill, let us go forward together. And I know that I'm going quickly because you've seen a lot of this stuff already, and I'm just going to show you kind of the wide ranging imagery. Very much like the loose lip sink ships, right? She talked, this happened. Careless talks cost lives. All right, so if you want to, this whole segment that I'm skipping through is about uh, cartoons and propaganda. Really cool if you're interested in like seeing, super racist Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse and, Bugs Bunny kicking Hitler's butt and things like that. So go through and check out those if you want. But it's an interesting way that they worked, that governments work through parents or through children to get to parents and sway the families through the most impressionable of them. Now here we go into uh, after World War II. We're looking at. I just thought this was neat. A pamphlet bomb. So this would have been something that goes over, villages and drops pamphlets on people because they don't have the internet, they don't have the phone. This is how you can spread a message through the printed word. This was a pretty innovative way to do that and just drop them from the sky all over towns. China uh, has, well, they're pretty much deifying Chairman Mao, uh, that he is kind of a god on earth. He's the sun that gives the sunflowers. You see how they're all beaming towards him, that he's the beacon that gives light to the earth and life to the plants. This is a poster showing the founding of the People's Republic of China. Uh, Now, we see two different versions of this, 1953 and 1956, and there are definitely some slight changes, okay? First of all, we see more microphones, more of an amplified voice, but we also see the disappearance of one person. If you look in the group of people, that guy right there, his name is Gao Gang. He is just erased from history. Now, the story of this is that he's one of Mao's generals, and we don't really know exactly what went on, but Stalin ended up telling Mao that Gang wanted to replace Mao Zedong. And, well, that got Mao pretty pissed. And he removed him from the government. And shortly thereafter, Gao Gang committed suicide in disgrace. So it's just kind of an interesting pictorial connection here from like things that happen behind the scenes and how they're represented in the actual artwork. Firmly support U.S. people against U.S. imperialism invading Vietnam. So here we see the Chinese government backing American protesters, that they supported the discord caused by the protests and wanting to really, continue that that message, and that only China could benefit if the U.S. pulled out of Vietnam, right? So that they're trying to, speak to those that are in a position to help protesters out and support the protesters. Mutual aid and mutual love to practice more actively, or to produce more actively. Look how happy they are, picking apples for each other, picking apples for the government. Isn't it the ideal society? That's what it wants you to believe. Now let's check out the Cold War. And this is much more than just, showing wartime images that we saw in some of the previous things, but this is very much a war of ideologies, communism and capitalism, still demonizing the other. If Russia should win and the communists should win the next world war, many Americans would be sterilized. Holy crap, that's intense. In case the communists should conquer, our women would be helpless beneath the boots of the Asiatic Russians. Whoa, talk about fear mongering. Yep, that's what a lot of this is. Okay, we see a lot of fear mongering in the Cold War. Victory of communism, all of this stuff looks pretty familiar. A man is a friend, comrade, and brother to man. Here we have pro communism. So healthy and vigorous. Exploring the science, the technological feats. Yay, USSR. What we're seeing, in the Cold War is also, of course, the uh, not just the societal things like what we're seeing here, and which one is more socially uh, superior, but we see a lot of technology and sciences, and that they want to be the better overall culture. Here we have a wonderful Soviet young lady graduating from school, doing her part, becoming the best that she can be. Now let's take a look at what happens in America. Real shame. Support for Vietnam. Of course, what we're seeing is, supporting a more communist cause here. Okay, I'll pick up here because I'm running out of time. And the next installment. Stay tuned.